So Patrick has asked me and Megan to share our feelings and our experiences that are ongoing since this major bit of history has occurred to our family. And Megan and I are perfectly happy to do this, not only for members of our family who may be coming behind us and who just want to know exactly what happened and how we all managed through this, but also very definitely for those that we may not know and who are having to undergo such an experience. And we immediately, once upon deciding we were going to work this together, we agreed that we would try to be available to anyone who is planning to have a liver transplant for whatever reason, or really an organ transplant for that matter, because people have been most generous with us in telling us what to expect and where to go and what's going to come, and it has meant an absolute the world to us. So we'd like to do that too. So this is kind of a dual purpose. It's for our family and it's also for anyone who might want to know the details of such a procedure. So my idea was just to kind of give a brief overview for those who are interested, and that is to know that my problem has been a term called PSC, which means primary sclerosing cholangitis. And that is an autoimmune condition, so I've learned. I first became symptomatic about 7 years ago, and it took me completely off guard, so as it did our family. And I became very, very ill, and from that point on, it was diagnosed happily at the University of Maryland and treated since then. But over the years, the episodes, which can last like sometimes from 2 days to 6 days to 7 days, have become worse and worse. And what's explained to me is that my liver has deteriorated more with each one of these episodes. So now it's to the point where it was cirrhotic and pretty much coming to the point where it was non-functional. So that kind of brings us up to the current time when I received a call from Dr. Petoskey, who is my liver doc, and he explained to me that the time had arrived for me and us as a family, to decide what we wanted to do regarding liver transplant. And I must tell you that those two words reverberated through me and through my husband Owen like shockwaves, because the words had been used on and again over the last 7 years, but it never really seemed real, because each time I got better, I went back to either work or back to my normal life, but now he was telling me that it was time to take action. And so, as a family, we really needed to start looking at things very differently. And that's pretty much where he said to me, he educated me first off, and that was to say that we are so fearfully and wonderfully made. That's from a psalm. And we are understanding that our liver can be divided, and both remaining parts that are left will regrow and become functional as they were in the beginning. And so we had a choice of whether we should go with a cadaver liver, that being someone who has died, and the family would have donated, or the person would have donated that liver, or with a live donor, that being someone who matched my blood type only, and was willing to take a huge chunk out of their lives while they went through this major, major surgery and recuperation, with all that involved. And that just really boggled my mind and everyone in our family to know that could even be done. And so you can imagine that the next step was realizing that was a possibility, and then to even think that a family member or even a friend, anyone, would be willing to do such a thing for you. You know, it still is absolutely mind-boggling. And so I think this is a place for me to stop, because that's a very definite spot where our kids jumped in.
Okay, well, so I will take it from there. I just wanted to also say that today is December 27, 2015, and Mom and I got back from the hospital about 5 days ago. Is that about right? Surgery was 12 days ago, so I think we're looking pretty good after such a major surgery. To take it from where Mom was talking about, it was about August, I think, that Mom let us know that liver transplant was an option, and she gravely called all the kids, and I can't speak to everybody else's reaction, but I was definitely shocked. I think we had known that was an option way further down the road, but not so soon. And Mom had been getting sicker, bouts of sickness off and on, so it was definitely a serious thing. Because of my medical training, I had been trained about live liver transplant as an option, so my mind went to that like right away. And I remember saying to Mom, what about live liver? Talk to your doctor about the live liver option. Is that an option? And if so, we can look into that. And I think Mom had come back later and said, yeah, that's definitely something that we can all consider. There was a series of family meetings, because it was definitely a nervous topic for all of us to consider the family offering their liver, including Aunt Ann. I know Aunt Ann would have pushed me to the side, like on the ground, to offer her liver to Mom, but I think her age precluded her from that. She was a little older than allowed. So for me, I knew I wanted to do it right off the bat. Like, there was no holding me back. I knew I just wanted to at least get the testing in and see if we were a match. And if that was a go, then great, and we can go to the next step and to the next step. And I know both Brennan and Patrick wanted to do it as well, and hopefully they can put their input onto camera at a future date. So for me, it was paramount just to get Mom healthy again and do it quick. So I contacted the hospital coordinator, and I requested, the next day I requested blood work, whatever needs to be done. And so I was living in Florida at the time, in the Clearwater area, along with Brennan and Carolyn and Patrick. And I did the blood work, and thank goodness my blood type was good. And the next step was about 20 tubes of blood that I gave after work one day. I remember I had not eaten lunch, and I went to the lab, and the look on the lab tech's face when I handed her this slip, it was like every test was checked on the thing. It was 20 tubes. So I remember I had to go in my car and lay down in my car after that. I was so woozy. So all of that came out fine. The blood testing, thank God, came out fine. They checked for everything. They checked for any kind of immunological problem, blood clotting problem, hepatitis, the whole deal. And so I was relieved that was normal. And then, I don't know, I guess at that point it was becoming more serious that this was going to happen. So I, in my own head, started planning. And I knew that, the surgery had to be done, whether it's a cadaver or alive, within the next couple months. So I put in my notice at work, and I told my landlord I was going to leave. And so I got all my things wrapped up and was able to leave Florida, I guess it was the end of October. And I have to say, I was very tired with my job. I was more than happy to leave, very burned out. So it was good timing. It was good timing with me for that. And so then I packed up all my stuff. Brennan and Mom came down to help me with that. That was a huge help. And Mom was not feeling so well at that point. She was getting blood tests every week to check her MELD scores, and her scores were up and down. And some scores were quite high and were really scary, and other ones were okay. So it was just a really roller coaster kind of time, but even made it more present that we need to get the surgery done right away. So I ended up driving up to the Outer Banks. We had a family vacation, timed perfectly. where I had a week where I could hang out with the family in North Carolina at the end of October, and then drove all the way up to Maryland after that, and then finished all the other testing that the hospital required. And so that was a little bit more blood work, a CT angiogram, an MRI of the chest and the abdomen, echocardiogram, chest X-ray, and I think that was it. Then you'll also meet with some other staff members. You'll meet with the social worker. You'll meet with all the surgeons. You'll meet with your coordinator, and is that it? I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So they're very good with that. They can combine all the testing and all your meetings into 1 or 2 days, or they could spread it out. And for me, they spread it out over a couple days, which was great. I know we had complete confidence. Mom was with me when I met with the surgeons, and complete confidence in the surgeons. You know, they blew us away right from the get-go. They were so competent and so confident and so amazing. And we went to University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore City, and they were just fantastic. So I think that put myself at ease quite a bit once we met the actual guys that would be doing the surgery. So at that point, everything was a go. Like, everything looked great. And so it was a matter of just scheduling the surgery. But at the same time, Mom was still on the transplant list for a cadaver. So we're very kind of at odds and ends. We wanted that to go through. We wanted Mom to have a cadaver liver ultimately that would save me the risk of serious surgery. But it just wasn't looking like that it was going to happen anytime soon. So we had to go forward with the live. And so that was scheduled for December 15th. And that was just about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago. And that's all I have to say right now.
I just have a little bit to add to, as Megan spoke, I too was getting thoughts, and I wanted to add again for those who are preparing for this whole experience, and that is, we were both very struck by the way, we can speak to the University of Maryland Hospital, and that is the way they handled both the live donor and the recipient. And I just want to make sure that anyone who needs to know that Megan had her own particular team, a private team of hers that was supporting her as I had mine. And that went right from surgeons, a whole surgical team, including the doctors, the nurses, the anesthesiologists, everything that goes into that whole thing. And then, as she mentioned, you know, the social services people, they were all separate, and the coordinators, one for the live donor, one for the recipient. It was like, you know, you could draw a line right down the middle, and each one of us received equal services, and they were focused on each one of us and our needs. And that was absolutely great. We really felt that was crucial to our questions and the answers that we got, and the people that we met were so tuned into our particular places in all of this. So I wanted to make sure that anyone coming along knows that. It's great.
So, that morning or that day.
So, we come to that morning. And I just want to add one more little thing too, and that is for Megan, as she was talking about, you know, her determination, but anyone who's I've got to say, anyone who is experiencing receiving this gift of life from, in our case, a family member, but I'm sure anyone would agree, anyone who would make such a sacrifice. But in our case, it's even more because Megan is our daughter, and her generosity, the feeling that is received from you if you are a recipient, from a family member who actually does this and gives up so much that she made sound like it was just perfectly fine, which we know better, is beyond words. And so be prepared for that. We're so new to all of this still that I'm sure it has not really affected me as it will probably in a year's time. But it is amazing. And you will want to just sit back and stare. and swallow and say, is this really true? So I really need to stress that, be prepared for that, because it's nothing that's ever happened to me before, anything near like this, and to have such generosity of spirit all around, as family members is definitely worth telling you about. So, all that brought us to the day, which in our case was December 15th, and that was a Tuesday. And Patrick, our oldest son, also sacrificed in that he took a complete break from work. He drove up here from Florida, and he has kind of just laid several weeks aside so that he can be all things to all of us, which we've needed. So he was here that day. Our middle son, Brendan, he went into town and took a hotel room so he could have a room available for anybody who wished to take a break in between times. And my husband, of course, who was very grateful to have the two guys around to give him a boost. And then Megan and I, who were kind of the stars of the show at the time being, shall I say. So we all arrived at the hospital around 5, 6 o'clock, somewhere in there. And of course it was very surreal. We walked up to the hospital, like you would be going to the park. And in we went and found the right place to go. And then it just seemed to me that Megan was whisked away. She again, true to the whole plan of things, she was put in a separate area. I was in a separate area. But we weren't very far from each other, so we found out. And but I didn't get to see Megan right then. She just went away. And then I was asked to wait till a room became available for us, which was only a few minutes. But then, right then, Megan came back and poked through the door, poked her nose through the door, and she said, "I'm just down here. See where I'm going to be right there." And so that was better. So she was on like one side of the hallway, and we were on another. And I say we because everybody was coming with me, and some of the kids needed to be with Megan. So we kind of were finding our way. And so then, of course, she got changed, I got changed, we wound up on the stretcher. And the teams were great. I think, was when we saw the anesthesiologist come in great detail and spoke with us, each in our own way. We were not together, but pretty much the same information. Our sons, who are both in medicine, were most interested in the anesthesiologist because, they really have their own take on things, and it was a very interesting exchange that they had. It was, their focus is so different from the nursing team and the surgeons, and they just saw things so differently. It was very interesting to hear that. So then what happened was Megan was supposed to go in at around 9, correct me? 7. 7. And then I was supposed to follow at 9. That was the way it was set up. But there was a delay, and Megan didn't actually go in till, I think it was close to 8.
Really? I don't remember that much. I remember they put my IV in, and everything was going according to plan. In fact, it was being sped along because they like Mom had said, they brought me back to the prep area, and everybody else was back in the waiting room, and I was like, oh, I'm here by myself. They just told me to get in the gown and get in bed, and I was under the impression that Mom would be in the bed next to me, and that's what I was told. We would be prepped together. And like 15, 20 minutes went by, and Mom's not there, and my family's not here, and I'm like freaking out.
Yeah.
And so they're taking my vitals, and all I can say is, can I please see my mom before surgery? Can I please see her?
And I was doing the same.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. But anyway, yeah. So I finally, once they put my IV in, I was able to walk over to Mom's room.
She came in with her gown flying.
Yeah.
It was so great.
I was like, this is terrible. I gotta say goodbye to my family.
It was so great.
Yeah.
And there's Megan standing there, and the people are coming in and out of the room with whatever they were doing, and it was just so great to see her face and to know she was right there, and it was terrific.
But in my memory, I was whisked off to surgery on time, but I don't know why after that it was delayed.
The problem with us being separated, when they did tell us that we would be together, was they didn't take into account that I had been found to have MRSA. So therefore I had to stay in a room all by myself, and Megan, that was the problem.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a normal thing.
Right.
So that's important.
But all that morning, I remember, it was just such a weird feeling. I mean, even from driving from our house with Patrick and me and Mom and Dad, driving to the hospital in pitch black, trying to maintain a normal, conversation, like small talk, and we're trying to make each other laugh, and there's some tension, at some points getting there and getting to the hospital. It was just such a weird, surreal day. I'm glad I was only awake for like 5 hours of it.
And if it helps anybody, what we did, Patrick actually was told by a friend of his, this beautiful resource of Psalm 91, which has stayed in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And so we, on the way downtown, we, as a family, were in the car and we recited that. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I know it gave me great calm and peace.
Yeah,
so
that was nice.
A suggestion.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So that takes me. I mean, I had the IV, and the surgeons or the anesthesiologists were so nice, and I got to meet the team before I was brought back, and they made me feel very comfortable, and they laughed a little bit with me and joked. And one of them, as he was putting my IV in, he's like, "Do you drink?" And they had taken my glasses off because I am completely blind without my glasses, and this was one of my nervousnesses of the whole day is like, my glasses are going to get lost, I'm going to be blind the whole time, I'm going to be disoriented. But my one brother Brendan was there, and he took my glasses, and he was there, and one of the anesthesiologist residents or whatever was like, "Do you drink?" And I said, "No, I haven't drank in a couple weeks because of the surgery." And he's like, "Oh, no, I just mean like when you're younger." And I was like, yeah. He's like, "Okay, well, you're going to feel like you've had a shot in about 10 seconds. And I'm like, "Okay." And I remember joking. I'm like, "Well, I'm Irish, so it may take a little bit longer than that." And so he was right around 20 seconds it hit me. And I was like, "Oh, 20 seconds, you're right. I feel so good." And then it was like lights out. I don't remember anything after that until being woken up after the surgery.
So Megan went in at the right time then, but they kept me waiting because somewhere along the line when they did one of my tests, it was read, I think, erroneously and gave a false diagnosis and that my lungs had a problem. So the doctors had to go back and kind of re-sift through that and make sure that indeed I did not have this lung concern. So that took like an hour, it felt to me, a long time. And finally we got the word that was fine and that Megan was under anesthesia and that it was definitely time for me to go. Well, they didn't give me any medication, at least that I knew of, until I got into the OR itself. Because I remember it's odd, but I was very interested in the OR itself and how it was set up and where the anesthesia doc sat. And
I'm surprised they didn't give you something before.
I mean, I was sitting, they asked me to get up and transfer, from the stretcher over to the OR table.
Oh, they made you do that.
I was with it.
Wow.
So I just lifted myself on over, and as so doing, I was able to see all the bank of anesthesia stuff over here. Wow. Then I got to see the long table of all the instruments, and the nurse was over there kind of laying out all the instruments.
Oh my God, good thing you didn't have the personality where you were freaking out to see that.
They must have known, because I was like chit-chatting away. Wow. So then the doc said, it's really time for us to put you to sleep now.
Yeah. That's dramatic.
And I said, well, I was happy to see where this was all going to happen. I had kind of an inordinate curiosity, which I can't explain, but it was there. So, and then, they got me comfortable, and off I went to sleep. Happily so.
But that was after a couple hours, right?
Yes.
The whole family had to entertain Mom for a couple hours while I was doing my surgery, and I'm sure that was difficult to try to keep your mind off what's happening.
Yeah, just because the kids know me well, they were playing. I'm Catholic. We were all Catholic, and they were playing hymns from Mass and from benediction, and Brendan was asking me what the name of these songs was. They really kept me engaged. So that was, I'm sure, a real good challenge on everybody's part. It was really well done. And so then you woke up before me.
Yeah, and at some point it would be good to hear everybody else's, Patrick and Brendan, Dad's stories on what happened between those two timelines. But yeah, I woke up, and it was so funny because Brendan and I had this weird small talk before I was brought back to the prep room, And I was just like asking him, jokingly, what are you going to do all day while I'm in surgery? It's going to be between me and mom and surgery. It's going to be like, I don't know, 10 hours that you're going to be having nothing to do. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go sightsee around Baltimore, and I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do a duck tour. And so when I woke up, I remember it being so blurry, and Brendan was so good. He put my glasses on right away. And I saw Brendan, and I'm like, Brendan, how was the duck tour? Oh my God. And then I remember being, but okay, I wasn't in pain, but they asked me how I'm feeling, and I remember isolating, the same I have right now. It's just a lot of discomfort right here. And then I remember they put the PCA in right away at that point. And Brendan, I remember saying, please somebody put her PCA in. So that's the patient controlled anesthetic or anesthesia. And I was able to dose myself, after that whenever I had pain. But that's the only clear memory I have after surgery, that fuzzy little funny moment. And I think I was brought into ICU at that point and probably just fell asleep right away. So yeah. And then how about you? Do you remember?
I don't remember a whole lot. I remember clearly, the one clear thing memory I have is that the breathing tube was still in, and I was alert, and I did not want that in. It was just awful, and I knew that I was breathing around it. I just knew that I didn't need that, but I'm going to say this for anybody following and who has that experience too. I mean, really, the doctors had their own reasons for it. Clearly, they were worried that should I stop breathing, they wouldn't have access. So I had to, of course, go with their judgment on that, but I was really like, ugh. That was the worst. I didn't even think about the surgery. It was just that. And it's like having a garden hose down your throat and trying to breathe. It was just so bad. So again, Brendan and Patrick came to the floor. Brendan found some kind of whiteboard. And he would ask me questions, just trying to keep me busy. He asked me questions, and God knows what I said. I was medicated, so I was writing answers because I couldn't say anything, and it did help to spend the time. And I to this day, I think he kept that whiteboard.
Yeah, I hope he did. He would, because my room and Mom's room were not too far away from each other in the ICU, and Brendan would update me. Like, he'd come back and he'd be like, I asked Mom this question and this question. She wrote this answer and this answer. And it was so funny. It was funny answers.
And so the ICU is an experience in itself. If you've never been a patient or a nurse or, a staff person in the ICU, it's a good thing to kind of brush up on it and be, I think, knowing the wonderful work that's done there, and that it's a place for us all as patients to just relax and let them take care of us. They're the most skilled people we'll probably ever meet. But the sounds and the actions and the activity in a unit such as that is quite foreign for most of us. And there were lots of alarms and lots of beepings going on, and several IVs. You can understand all of that. There were, like, at one point, I think, as a recipient, I think I had something like 3 or 4 IVs going. And then you'll wake up and you'll have a tube in your bladder, and you'll have one in your nose going down into your stomach. None of these were troublesome, by the way. And then all the IV tubes, my breathing tube, which was troublesome, but we got rid of that. And
yeah.
See, did I forget
and
anything?
The donor is similar. You definitely have more than we did, or I did. But yeah, you have like a central line when you wake up. There's 2 IVs, the Foley cath. You have drain. I only had 1 drain coming from the surgical site, but I think you had several. 4. And so, yeah. But you just need to know that when you wake up. It's not as alarming if you're prepared for that.
Right. That's right. And they treat you so well. And really, everyone to a person is very, very tuned into pain. And they do not want any of us to be in pain if we can possibly avoid it. So there'll be lots of questions. And the way they do it, if you're unfamiliar, is to just say, what level of pain are you at? 0 being no pain at all, 10 being the very worst you've ever experienced. And then you can tell them an 8 or a 9, whatever, and they have that all graduated and give you the specific amount of medication that's meant to alleviate that level of pain. And my feeling was, I think Megan will agree, that there was no hesitancy at all, well maybe once, no hesitancy in the ICU about medication
Yeah.
administration and what we needed. So that was a great source of comfort.
Yeah, I can't say enough about the staff. They were so amazing in the ICU, so helpful, and just anything you need. And you'll spend most of the time sleeping in ICU. You won't be awake. You'll be really drowsy. And they're going to check on you every 2 hours, checking vitals and making sure you're awake, and check your pain score and do all that kind of stuff. They'll do an exam and check your wound, and it'll just become routine. They're going to do that. Even when you move up to the unit, you're going to be having that done to you constantly.
Yeah. And they just really monitor. They try to take out those tubes that I mentioned quickly. Like the NG tube, the one in the nose, went quickly the minute you're tolerating any kind of fluids. And the Foley catheter they pulled out that evening, and then they're just anxious that you empty your bladder on your own. So, that takes a little while too. They did, my memory tells me they got me up that night. I needed to go and try the toilet. Yeah, so I was up on my feet, and now the commode was right smack next to the bed, so I didn't have to go any farther. But it was great. We were out of bed. I'm sure Megan was too.
No, I was not. I was told I would be out of bed the same day, but I don't know why. I think that got overlooked, where I was bedbound for about 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it wasn't until I got to the unit that I was like, can somebody please help me walk? Like, I want to be able to walk on my own and take a couple steps. And so I wish I had said something sooner, where I was walking sooner.
Yeah.
So it's good to get out within the first day to walk.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And and then from then on in, really, again, my recollection is that, the nurse came in, I remember clearly that, then they moved us. They moved us from the ICU up to what's called it's a step down. It's a step down unit that is still the ICU flavor, and lots of beeping and lots of activity, but it's not as intense, hence intensive care. And so the focus is still on pain management, but it's on watching, it's observing now. Does the wound weep at all? Is there any bleeding? They do lab work on the recipient anyway. I don't know about the donor, but I had labs done like maybe 2 or 3 times every day, and then once during the night. So they followed that very, very carefully. And usually, lots of times, that IV that they pulled from was already in. So it wasn't like they had to stick me for it. They just pulled blood, and they kept close watch on everything. So that's what that was all about. And you could tell that it was a little bit more relaxed. Megan, well, she needs to tell you about her suite.
So at University of Maryland, they treat their donors very well. So they moved me from the ICU up to a donor suite. So it's on the floor of all the transplants, and it's a little hidden back away. There's 2 suites, and they're like hotel rooms, and I was very lucky to be there. It was much more quiet, and it had the feel of a hotel room. They had a mini fridge and a beautiful view of Baltimore. Everything was kind of wood paneled, and it was nice. It was just so nice to go from a really loud, hectic ICU to that quiet room. It was just heaven.
Yeah.
So that was really nice.
Curtains, it had everything. It had its own little computer if she ever wanted to, to do that. Or maybe visitors would benefit if they were so many people are from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where, a visitor probably would be grateful for a computer access. And yeah, it was just very, very, very nicely done. I was so pleased about that.
Yeah.
And so we both stayed in another 3 days?
Yeah, I think so. We were there a week total.
Yeah, 7 days.
Yeah.
Right. And then we progressed so well that they told us we could go home. And that was 1 week to the day. So as we mentioned, we went in on the 15th, and I think we went home on the 22nd. I think was 7 days later.
Huh.
And here we are at home, and among our own things and our own family, and much more healthy than having to stay in the hospital for a prolonged amount of time. The suture line is kind of extensive. It goes right across your abdomen, but the doctor will show you all that. It's just as they explain it to you. But it's not, what's important that I tell you is that it's not immobilizing. You know, we get up and we're down, and I can go out to the kitchen. I even, cleaned up a little, tiny little bit. I had to do that just to make myself feel better. And, your energy level definitely is low, very low. So I think we all have to learn to do things in small segments. Like the shower this morning just literally wiped me out. But once I sat down for a little while, I was fine. I was back in action again. So it's a respecting our bodies after this major assault that they have sustained. And we just need to remember that. That's the main thing. And as far as medications are concerned, there are quite a number. I would say probably off the top of my hat, maybe 15, 17, something like that they sent me home with, bottles. But they give you every kind of assistance. There's medication boxes and planners and wonderful organizing forms, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You may want somebody definitely overlooking over your shoulder when you're putting out the medications for the first time for yourself. But the way they have it set up now is that Megan and I both go in the day after tomorrow for what's referred to as clinic. And we'll start that. Megan won't be having to do it past, I think, 3 months, if I'm correct. I need to do it for the better part of a year. But during that time, you have blood drawn in advance the day before, and they will then check the blood levels of those medications. And that's how they tell whether that dosage is appropriate or not. And they're mainly for anti-rejection. Mostly they are. I noticed a lot of mine are supplements that you just tend to have less vitamin A and D and E and K. Those vitamins are affected. So they're taking care of that, but mainly for rejection. So they do monitor us closely for that. But the doctor has told me that after a year, it's more than likely I'll only be on one medication. So the miracles continue.
So I will speak a little bit about being a donor at this point and what it's like. I know my number one question to donors prior to this whole thing was, if you could do it again, would you? And absolutely, 100%, without a doubt. Recovery is hard, and it's a pain, and you're sore, and you're nauseous, and you can't eat, and you can't sleep. But I know that's all temporary, and so it's by far worth it. So I hope that puts people's minds at ease that yes, it is definitely worth it. And if I were to answer that question in a month, and 6 months, and a year, I know it would all be the same. It would be yes, I would do it again. So for now, what I'm dealing with is fatigue. Like, I am tired all the time. And this is just an interesting flip, because Mom was the one who was so tired all the time, and I had so much energy, and I was up and doing things, and like more energy than I could deal with. And now I'm like, feel like I've been just run over. So I have to take naps frequently, and I have to respect my body. When I start to get tired or I get winded, I lay down and I take like a 2-hour nap, and I feel better, and then I get up. And at night, I'm trying to sleep longer. So my first couple nights asleep weren't so good, but now I'm getting comfortable with how to place pillows and how to adjust my head up, and so now I'm able to, along with pain medication, I'm able to sleep a good 9 hours a night. So sleeping well at night and then taking frequent naps during the day seems to help me quite a bit. So I'm hoping, I've been told, at week 3 or so, the fatigue starts to lighten up a little bit and have more energy, and it'll get better and better from there. But that is the number one. You will be tired. And then, medications for me, I'm on pain medicine, which I've never been on before, so it's okay. Part of me doesn't want to take it. My brain says, try to take less if you can. I've always been taught that, but now I know that I do need to be on a schedule. So like every 4 hours I'm taking a pain medicine, and that just keeps me going. That keeps my pain at bay. That allows me to be, up and around when I need to, and have an appetite and sleep. So that's the main thing. With me, they were worried about electrolytes in the hospital, so I'm on some electrolyte supplements and some nausea medicine when I need it, and stool softeners. So with you being on pain medicine so much, your bowels are going to stop working, but that's normal. you just got to keep taking the bowel medication and everything's fine. And so for me, I'm going to just be laid up like this happily next to my mom in the same house for the next several weeks. And I just, need to get that into my head that that's part of recovery. I just need to, just let my body recover. And in about 8 weeks post-transplant, my liver will have regenerated to the full size. And they'll be checking blood work periodically to confirm that, I think. And they may do an imaging at some point to show the growth. And then I hope to be back to work in about 3 months and back to my normal life. So that's it.